talk about something that most of us would rather avoid, what it feels like when love begins to fade. Not just the absence of butterflies or the shift from fireworks to routine, but the quiet, creeping withdrawal that happens when someone no longer loves you. It doesn't happen in an instant. It's not a light switch. It's more like a slow dimming of a room you didn't even realize was growing darker. And while everyone's story is different, there are patterns, there are signs. There are 3 things people often do first. 3 early warnings we often ignore because we don't want to believe what they're telling us. When someone no longer loves you, the very first thing that often disappears is their curiosity about you. And it sounds so small, right? But it's everything. Love isn't just passion or grand gestures, it's presence. It's consistent, gentle curiosity. It's asking about the mundane parts of your day because they matter to you, so they matter to me. It's leaning into your world, not because I have to, but because I want to know what made you laugh, what frustrated you, what you're dreaming about lately. When love begins to fade, that hunger to know you begins to fade too. They stop asking how you're feeling, not just the surface level, how was your day, but the real quiet check-ins. Are you okay? What's been weighing on you? Are you happy here with me? They stop noticing the details, the shift in your mood, the way your voice softens when you're unsure, the subtle signals that once invited connection. The person who used to ask about your childhood, your scars, your favorite songs, now barely remembers your favorite color. And the worst part is you start to notice, but you tell yourself not to. You tell yourself they're tired, that it's stress, that they're just distracted lately. You fill in the silence with excuses because the truth that someone no longer wants to know you deeply feels unbearable. But that loss of curiosity, it's not just a withdrawal. It's a disconnect of intimacy. When someone stops being curious about you, it's often because they've stopped seeing your heart as essential to theirs. They no longer seek to understand you because they're no longer trying to hold you. And when you're no longer held in someone's attention, you begin to disappear in the relationship. Not loudly, quietly, softly, tragically. So pay attention to the quiet places, to the lack of questions, to the empty pauses where once there was interest. Because when curiosity dies, closeness goes with it. And without closeness, love turns into routine, into convenience, into absence that still sleeps beside you. When someone no longer loves you, the second thing they often do is replace effort with excuses. And at first it's subtle, so subtle that you don't even realize it's happening until you're sitting alone in a moment you were supposed to share. There was a time when they showed up not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, wholeheartedly. They texted back without delay. They planned things, remembered small details, made space in their day for you, not because they were trying to impress you, but because they cared. Love, when it's present, doesn't feel like work. It becomes the work we want to do. It's natural to prioritize the people we care about. So when they were in love with you, their time, attention, and energy aligned around you. You weren't just a part of their life, you were a priority within it. But when love begins to fade, effort becomes optional. They stop trying. And instead of telling you directly, they begin to offer soft, reasonable, almost understandable excuses. I'm just swamped right now. I forgot, sorry, it's been a long day. Can we reschedule? I just need space. And sure, everyone gets tired, everyone needs space. But when it becomes a pattern, a shift begins from making time to finding a reason not to, from excited plans to half-hearted maybes, from I can't wait to see you to let me get back to you. And what stings the most? You feel the difference, but you keep forgiving it. You defend them to yourself. You romanticize the early days to quiet the ache of what's no longer happening now. You tell yourself you're asking for too much when really you're asking for what was once freely given. Here's the thing. People make time for what they value. They protect what they care about. Effort isn't about grand gestures. It's about presence, consistency, and choosing someone again and again, even on the boring days. So when someone who once chose you with both hands begins to only show up when it's convenient, when everything starts to feel one-sided, it's not about busyness. It's not about life being crazy right now. It's about emotional disinvestment. It's about love exiting the relationship quietly, one canceled plan, one delayed reply, one missed moment at a time. And here's where it gets hard. You can't fix it by trying harder, because effort is not something you can drag out of someone. It's something they have to want to give. So when their effort becomes excuses, let that be your mirror, not to show you what you're lacking, but to remind you of what you deserve. Someone who doesn't need convincing to care. Someone who doesn't have to be begged to show up. Someone whose love shows itself in action, not just apology. One of the most painful signs that someone no longer loves you isn't loud. It doesn't come in the form of slammed doors or shouting matches. That comes quietly when you start to notice you're no longer part of their future. You stop hearing we, you start hearing I. I've been thinking about moving. I want to go back to school. I might take that job overseas. They talk about their dreams, their plans, their next chapters, and your name is missing from the narrative. And you sit there nodding, smiling, supporting, but something inside you is breaking. Because you realize that somewhere between us and me, you got erased. Not violently, not intentionally, but slowly, like ink fading on a page. And the tragedy is this person still might be beside you. They still sleep next to you. They still ask if you need anything from the store. But emotionally, spiritually, they're walking a road you're no longer invited to travel. In the beginning, they used to dream with you. You'd talk about vacations you wanted to take, the home you'd build, the kids, maybe the adventures. Your name was planted in the soil of every possibility. But now they talk about someday in a way that feels distant. They hesitate when you say, should we go together? They smile politely and change the subject. Or worse, they tell you it's not the right time, that they don't know what they want. And you know that's not the full truth, because what they mean is they don't know if they want you in what they want. And that's a brutal truth to sit with. But it's also a necessary one, because we can't keep tying ourselves to people who have emotionally untied themselves from us. We can't keep building futures in our hearts that are already empty in theirs. When someone stops imagining a life with you, they've already begun the process of letting go. They just haven't said it out loud yet. Maybe because they're afraid. Maybe because they don't want to hurt you. Maybe because part of them still wishes they could feel what they used to feel. But you can't stay loyal to a version of the relationship that only exists in your mind. If you keep reaching for a future that doesn't include you, both you will break your own heart trying to hold what they've already dropped. You deserve to be in someone's vision, not just as a placeholder, not as a question mark, but as a part of the picture, as someone who is counted, considered chosen. So if their plans are unfolding without your name in them, don't fight to stay in the margins. Write your own story. Dream your own dreams. And make sure that next time you build your future with someone who's still dreaming with you. Sometimes it ends in dust, a slow settling of silence, of space, of absence where presence used to live. We tend to believe that heartbreak arrives with a bang, an affair, a fight, a betrayal, a door slammed shut. But more often than not, when someone no longer loves you, it doesn't look like a storm. It's like a quiet drought. No big declarations, no formal exits. It just is slow unraveling of what once held you together. You stop talking about things that matter. If you stop laughing as much, you stop touching each other just because you want to, not because it's routine. The good morning text shows up later. The good night kiss gets missed once, then twice, then becomes an afterthought. And you tell yourself this is just a rough patch. You believe that it's just the season you're in, that maybe things will get better when work slows down, when the kids are older, when you both get some rest. But underneath all the reasons is a reality you don't want to name. They're slipping away and you can feel it, but there's no moment to point to. No evidence to hold up and say, look, here's the proof it's falling apart. And that's what makes it so painful. Subtlety robs you of certainty. You feel the loss deeply, but you question yourself constantly. You start to wonder if you're being too sensitive, too needy, too much. You become an investigator of their mood, reading into every tone, every pause, every misreply, because you're trying to make sense of what your body already knows, but your heart doesn't want to accept. Love doesn't live here the way it used to. And the worst part, they're probably not trying to hurt you. In fact, they may not even fully realize they've begun to pull away. Because fading love isn't usually a choice, it's a drift. A drift that happens when connection is no longer nurtured, when effort becomes habit, and the magic turns into maintenance and nobody bothers to light the fire again. This kind of ending is hard to grieve because it doesn't have a clear beginning. There's no exact moment you can look back on and say, that's when I lost them. All you know is one day you woke up in the same bed with someone who no longer reached for you in the dark. So you learn to read the silence. You learn to decode what's missing. You learn to carry the ache without answers. But here's the truth. Just because something ends quietly doesn't mean it doesn't hurt like hell. Just because there's no explosion doesn't mean there wasn't devastation. And you deserve more than a love that disappears while still smiling at you across the table. You deserve clarity. You deserve presence. You deserve someone who doesn't let the flame die in silence. Someone who's brave enough to speak when things are breaking and tender enough to fight for what still matters. Because love doesn't vanish overnight. It fades in subtle ways, in slow moments, and then all at once you realize what you were holding on to is already gone. Because after all this talk about fading love, distance, and disconnection, there's a lie that often sneaks in and wraps itself around your heart like a vice. It whispers, if they stop loving me, there must be something wrong with me. That lie is powerful. It's quiet, but it's persistent. And if you're not careful, it becomes your inner monologue. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I was too much. If I had been prettier, smarter, more patient, less emotional, maybe they would have stayed. Here's the truth. Their inability to keep loving you does not make you unlovable. I'll read that again. Let it sink in. We confuse someone's exit with our value. We treat their fading affection as a mirror when it was never meant to be one. But love, true love, is not a reward for perfection. You don't earn it by being flawless. You don't lose it because of your humanity. People stop loving sometimes because they change, because they're afraid of intimacy, because they don't know how to grow with someone, because they've got wounds they never healed, expectations they never said out loud, or standards you never agreed to. They may have walked away emotionally or physically, but that departure is not proof of your deficiency. It's only proof of their decision. There are parts of you they didn't understand. There are ways you showed up that they couldn't receive. There were corners of your soul they never explored, not because they weren't there, but because they chose not to lean in. And yes, maybe you made mistakes. Maybe you weren't perfect, but none of us are. Love that lasts doesn't require perfection. It requires effort, grace, and willingness. And both people have to show up with that, not just you. If you're the one who carried the emotional labor, if you were the one who kept trying to fix what they stopped acknowledging, or if you were holding the thread while they were already letting go, it doesn't mean you were too much. It means you cared deeply. It means your heart was still in it. That's not weakness. That's your strength. That's your tenderness. That's your love, still alive, still reaching. But hear me now. You are not just lovable when you are loved by someone else. You are lovable because of who you are. You are lovable when you're healing, when you're messy, when you're unsure, when you're standing in the ruins of something you tried to save. Someone else's failure to see your worth does not erase your value. Someone's silence does not diminish your voice. Someone's exit does not cancel your existence. So don't let heartbreak convince you that you are broken. Don't let their leaving make you forget the kind of love you are capable of giving and the kind you deserve to receive. Because here's what I know. Someone out there will meet your depth but depth. Someone will stay curious. Someone will choose you without needing to be convinced. And most importantly, you can choose yourself until they arrive. You are still lovable as you are right now, as you are. There comes a moment after the silence, after the fading effort, after the realization that you've been written out of someone's future, when you stand at a crossroads. And that moment doesn't usually come with a clear sign. It comes with a deep, aching exhaustion in your bones. It comes with the realization that you've been pouring from a cup that no one bothered to refill. Then it comes when you finally ask yourself,